On the line, the Rochester Razorsharks home opener, Saturday, January 16th. That's this Saturday, 1:05. Razorsharks 1-1 on the season, taking on the Providence Sky Chiefs. We welcome to the program their head basketball coach, Chris Daleo. How's it going, Chris?
Fine. I heard a pause before you announced the last name.
Well, because
so I know that you were trying to get it from your producer. Hey, how do you pronounce that last name?
Well, look, I mean, I want to get it right. We don't want to get your name wrong here on the very first time on the show. I want the audience here to get a chance to know you, and the last thing I want to do is screw your name up. So, Daleo, right? Coach Daleo?
Any way you want, as long as it's complimentary. If it's like, hey, that Coach Jerkoff or something like that, we would have problems. But other than that, I think you're fine. Don't worry about it.
Well, Coach, I appreciate you joining us here. Home opener coming up on Saturday. You guys have played a couple of games here so far. So what have you seen from your team here so far, and what can fans here in Rochester expect to see on Saturday?
You know, a young club, an energetic club, a lot of interchangeable pieces. Players that are very excited to be representing the Razorsharks, very excited to be here, and a young club. So I think they're gonna like the intensity. They're gonna like the enthusiasm. Fans that is, and hopefully we take care of our business and take care of Providence on Saturday.
Now Saturday, the home opener, 1:05. For fans who are going out to this game, are there going to be some familiar faces? What can you tell us about some of the guys on the team?
We have a blend of former Razorsharks from last year and then new faces coming in. You know, anytime you deal with minor league basketball, sometimes it can be a transient situation where players can jump from league to league, or they go overseas, or they just say, you know, they end up in retirement mode. So from last year's club, we have Cerise Crouch, who's always been a mainstay here in Rochester. Melvin Council has been with us a couple of years. Kyle Randall played with them last year. And then you have some new faces as well. So it's kind of a blend, and we're all trying to get to know each other on the floor. It's concepts and putting everything together. And like I said, we'll put forth a good show against Providence.
Being joined here by Rochester Razorsharks head coach Chris Daleo. They play their home opener on Saturday, 1 o'clock at the Blue Cross Arena. Coach, in terms of your career, I mean, it's amazing the places that basketball has brought you. I was looking up your resume here, and not only just all over the country, but all over the world. I want to start with the country first. I mean, you've been a number of different places. Is there a place that has stood out in your career as your favorite stop so far here in the United States?
No, not necessarily that. Well, I cut my teeth in Rockford in the CBA days, and that's always been something that's I've held true to heart because I coached against some great coaches. Dave Yeager, who is currently the coach of the Memphis Grizzlies, I had to coach against him. You know, when I was up in Albany, when Rockford went up to Albany, which is like the Madison Square Garden of the CBA, where Phil Jackson was, and George Karl was, all those guys are all longtime CBA guys. So that's kind of where I cut my teeth. But as far as globally, my trips to China have been fantastic, and I'm going to Greece at the end of our season to represent the Razorsharks at a coaching clinic out there. So basketball's been pretty good to me, and but right now I just got to focus on Providence.
I'm interested in the China trips because I've never been there myself, but you hear all the time about how basketball crazy they are over there, especially when it comes to NBA. I don't know if that was with Yao Ming coming over, if they were big fans of basketball beforehand, but how basketball crazy is China?
Basketball crazy is not even a word. A basketball frenzy, and it's funny because I've been there. I went there for 5 straight years, and I took some years off, and I went back just recently. And it's funny how basketball has developed so quickly and so rapidly amongst the skill sets amongst their players that it's just phenomenal. Where before, back when I first started going, kids could barely dribble, and now, and I don't know if it's based upon the NBA and TNT or YouTube or whatever it may happen to be, I have Chinese athletes taking kids off the dribble, spin dribbling, working on floaters, working on everything like NBA players do. So it really is I've been lucky enough to see such a positive progression of basketball skills in China that it really is something to behold.
Being joined here by Rochester Razorsharks head coach Chris Daleo. Their home opener Saturday, 1 o'clock at the Blue Cross Arena against Providence Sky Chiefs. In terms of the style of play you like to see your teams play, is this? I mean, is it? Does it depend on the roster you have? Is it more, hey, we got to fit it to certain guys, or do you have a certain style of play that you like to implement on your teams?
Well, it's one thing, it's always a standard cliche to coaches. Oh, we get out and we score in transition. We try to run in transition. But if the other team takes the air of the ball and really works the ball, there's not much scoring you're going to do in transition. So we try to create with the trappings, pushing ball into corners, try to create scoring out of defensive transition. Fans always like that because it's an exciting pace. We try to up the tempo a little bit using our length and athleticism. And that's a style of basketball that I really appreciate, and usually the fans do too, because it's a hard-working style versus like a Jeff Van Gundy where they take the air of the ball, walk it on up, and keep the averages around 70s. We try to push it up a little bit more, but under control with good solid rotations and good solid trapping zones. So there you have it. If you want really the whole basketball ins and outs.
We're being joined here by Rochester Razorsharks head coach Chris Daleo. Again, their home opener on Saturday against the Providence Sky Chiefs. Has Providence played yet this year? Have you gotten to see anything of them, or is it more, hey, we got to play our style, we can't really worry about what they do?
Well, to answer the first part of the question, they played Boston last week. I watched the game on the web, and to be honest with you, I couldn't even tell you who won. I watched to see what kind of player tendencies, what basic sets they ran, how they pick up in defensive transition, where they force sideline, baseline, and things of that nature. So they played, I know, last week. But realistically, to answer the second part of your question, it's just a question of what we have to do. If we take care of our business and do what we've been taught to do since the start of training camp, then we're going to be in great shape. It's when one person deviates or one person doesn't do the rotation that they're supposed to be doing, then it starts to crumble. So that's the main goal with this club, is to just make sure everybody gets on the same page and executes what they've been taught to execute.
Coach, you mentioned training camp, and the guys still kind of learning each other, learning you, new coach, a lot of new players. How long? When was training camp? How long have you guys been together and had a chance to kind of get some chemistry and a chance to gel?
Right after Christmas is when we started. So it was December 28th. And we ran for about 7 days worth of camp, and then we opened up on Jamestown on the road, and then last week we were in Kentucky, and so now this is our third game of our season. So really, we just started coming together on December 28th, and so it's kind of been a short period of time, and during that time, some players have been cut and other players brought in, so it's just a question, like I said, chemistry's big, and not necessarily where you all hold hands and eat a meal together, not that type of team chemistry, but just understanding your basic defensive rotations of where a guy is supposed to be. If you rotate here, a guy has to take your spot, and that's been our biggest thing right now.
Yeah, and how difficult does that make it on you as the coach? I mean, limited time in terms of from when you guys started to when you're thrown onto the court and into real games here. I mean, we'll probably see a much different team at the end of the season than we're going to see now, based on the fact that it all is still fairly fresh and new.
Absolutely, you're speaking my language exactly. High basketball IQ for you. That's exactly right, and that's what people have to understand. You're going to be a better team your 6th, 7th, 8th game of the season than you are now. So with film sessions and constant reinforcement of muscle memory on rotations and things of that nature, the mistakes that you make early get cleaned up and everything is sharpened and honed in. So basically you want to be peaking come playoff time. No different than in basketball, where you want to be peaking come in college basketball, getting ready for March Madness. It's the same thing in pro. That's why a lot of the NBA teams, they rest guys early because they want to be peaking for the second season. It's exactly the same principles.
That's head coach of the Rochester Razorsharks, Chris Daleo. You can check out the home opener this Saturday, 1:05 at the Blue Cross Arena, as the Sharks take on the Providence Sky Chiefs. Coach, appreciate the time. Good luck to you and your squad on Saturday, man.
Thank you very much. I greatly appreciate it. Have a good evening.
All right, you as well. That is head coach of the Razorsharks, Chris Daleo.